pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation to present at the Scandinavian Sensor Summit in Horten. Horten love. Huh? It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a sunny day, and it's nice to see so many kända fjeser and new faces as well. So it's nice to be able to talk English in Norway. I'm an Englishman. There's some Welsh people here, I understand. I won't talk about the rugby. There's a big competition on in France right now, so we should have been in France. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be able to talk English about something that I really have a big passion for, and that's lean manufacturing. But it says digitalization here. I'm working at SINTEF Manufacturing, where I'm chief scientist and research manager for digital production. I'm leading a team who are sitting in Trondheim and Raufoss and here in Horten and in Oslo as well. And we're looking at digital solutions and how we can implement these and adopt these in manufacturing organizations to enhance performance, both economically and sustainability, right? So I think fitting rather well with the theme of this conference, resilience and sustainability are important topics. Digitalization is maybe a means that we can get there, but let's not be foolish. It's not necessarily the first solution we should look at. So I put up here some question marks on my title. Digitalization for a sustainable and resilient future. Spørsmålstegn. Is it really? And I think yes, okay. Not necessarily the solution, but it's a means of working towards a more sustainable future. You see, the thing is, the implications of digitalization are uncertain, at best ambiguous. I'm working in research. SINTEF is a research organization, and when we look at research results, many of the digitalization projects, they're not really making that big an impact on performance. Who here has heard of Industry 4.0? A German concept, launched by the German government in 2011. Have anybody seen the productivity of Germany since Industry 4 came on scene? It's declined. Not because of Industry 4.0, maybe. There are other things which have happened in the world. For example, COVID, war in Ukraine. But we would have expected that Industry 4.0 may have made Germany a more resilient industry. But it's certainly an industry in decline, which is a shame. And I think we have work to do still. So it's important for us to think logically about these challenges. Let's put this into perspective. We are consuming the Earth's natural resources at an alarming rate. In 1970, some of you were born then, one planet was enough. We broke even in 1970. There were enough natural resources to account for the demands of humanity. I was born in 1982. September 1982. Already in November that year, we had consumed enough to account for the demand of the planet. I was a hungry baby. 2 months and we'd used up everything on planet Earth. If we look, I have some other interesting facts here now. So this year, does anyone want to guess when Earth Overshoot Day was this year? It's been already, 2nd of August. On the 2nd of August, the Earth was consumed. Now we're on credit for future generations. And of course, that's a very rough measure, Earth Overshoot Day, looking at the biological capacity of the Earth against the demand of humanity. But if we look at countries in particular, this is when it gets exciting. So UK this year, May 19th. Not the 17th, but the 19th. I think there were big parties on the 17th of May that counted towards that, perhaps. But in Norway, even more worrying, April the 12th. We're living on borrowed time, guys. What are we going to do about it? That's a challenge for us to think about. And there are many people say that digitalization is maybe the key that can unlock net zero for industry. And yes, digitalization, it's cool, it's sexy, it's trendy, right? It's very much trending. Internet of Things. Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. Is this going to solve the sustainability crisis? ChatGPT. It might be a start point, but it's certainly not an end point. And I think something else to be aware of when we're implementing digital, so digitalization projects, 70 to 90% of these fail to deliver what we set out to achieve. That's a huge failure rate. On average, organizations will waste $5.5 million on failed digitalization projects in the coming years. Do we really have that much resources to waste? So my message, lean first, then digitalize. Many are thinking, lean, isn't that some worn out old buzzword from the 1990s? Huh? Who's heard of lean? Lean is one of the most misunderstood business concepts of our time. I remember I worked for 5 years in Kongsberg Maritime, down on Strandpromenaden, and we designed and developed a lean program which we rolled out over the whole subsea division. And I met one of our suppliers one day, and he said, wow, you have a PhD in lean. I said, yeah, it's cool, right? You have a PhD in putting yellow tapes on the floor? That's not what lean is about. So lean is misunderstood. Many people think lean is just a set of tools and techniques which we implement for operational efficiency, right? To become more efficient. It's not an efficiency paradigm. Lean is a people development paradigm. It's about developing human capital, creating thinking organizations. So, okay, we use the yellow tape on the floor to make people think. It's one of the ways we create conditions for learning. Yeah? So lean is a learning system. So we should do lean first and then digitalize. Because if you don't first embrace lean thinking, you're going to encounter a lot of problems in your digital efforts. So we need to think first about why are we really setting out to do some digitalization, okay? 2019, I was one of the co-authors of this book, Lean Sensei, which I kind of used my experiences from Kongsberg to think about, well, if lean is a learning system, who teaches this stuff? And how do we teach this stuff? Who's taken a lean course at university? Who's taught a lean course in a university classroom? I shouldn't have done. You can't learn lean in a classroom. You have to go to Gemba. You remember? Gemba, the real place, the factory, the boat, the underwater environment. Go to Gemba and understand the real challenges. Encounter the real problems. Discover the problems. I love that you're called Kongsberg Discovery now. That's a lean company. Discovery. The lean is a discovery process for discovering challenges and developing people. And I think this is the most misunderstood part of lean. So the lean pivot is that mainstream management is about implementing solutions. We learn that in business school. I hear you have an MBA, Lynn. We implement old thinking from the beginning of the 1900s. And we're still doing that. We're running our businesses based on this stuff. Sitting in the boardroom discussing numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. Worryingly enough, we're using Excel spreadsheets to report our impact on sustainability now. Is that going to solve the problem? No. It might help us find opportunities for improvement. I'm not sure how many people are really using it to find opportunities for improvement. So that's a challenge as well. And that's where lean is different. Lean is about really understanding the problems. It's about going to the place where stuff is happening, the Gemba, the crime scene, and actually seeing what impact do we have as a human race on our environment. And what are the problems which we see around us? Most of those problems are caused by misconceptions. Stuff we learned in the classroom on our MBA. Stuff we've picked up along the way. I'll say adult learning, it's about discovering misconceptions. We don't need to learn new knowledge. We don't need to read books and learn new knowledge necessarily, but we use that knowledge in the books to reframe our understanding of certain concepts. We need to really get out there and understand what don't we know. It's discovering our unknown unknowns, which is what lean is all about. It's going and seeing and understanding. So in that respect, the lean strategy for sustainable development or any kind of development is actually understanding and creating consensus on our core challenges. What's the most important challenge that we face today in this organization or as humanity. And then going from that challenge, which sets the direction, what are the problems which we're facing which are preventing us from solving that challenge? And then we use something called Kaizen, continuous improvement, to actually solve those problems, learn new things, learn how to solve those problems, and then address the greater challenge. Okay? Challenge, problem, Kaizen. Let's go on a little history lesson now. We go back to the 1950s. Who knows this chap? Eiji Toyoda. Eiji Toyoda was the cousin of Kiichiro Toyoda. Kiichiro Toyoda was the founder of Toyota Motor Company, son of Sakichi Toyoda. And actually, Eiji Toyoda, he created consensus in Toyota around one thing: quality. You see, Eiji discovered that Toyota made really crappy cars in the 1950s. US auto manufacturers were 8 times as productive as Toyota in those days, 1950s. And influential for Eiji Toyoda, who was largely responsible for bringing Toyota into profitability, was this guy, W. Edwards Deming. He was a professor, academic from the US, who was going around preaching about quality management. This process diagram was claimed to be the most sketched on blackboards. They didn't have whiteboards back in the 1950s. On blackboards in Japan in the 1950s. Start with quality. You fix quality, your costs decrease because of less rework, fewer mistakes, fewer delays, etc., etc. Better use of machine time and materials. Now there we see a link already with sustainability. If we don't waste materials because we don't produce scrap, we're already making an impact on sustainability. Better use of materials, more with less. And he also explained how it's not just about production guys which are creating quality problems. It's the whole value stream. We certainly need engineers to be successful with lean. Lean is a technical paradigm. We need to learn technical stuff about our products. That's why it's so cool to see so many technological advancements out here. We have clever guys and clever girls in this room. Huh? You guys are going to solve the sustainability problems. Maybe you don't know it yet. Some of you do. So let's go back to Eiji Toyoda. What Eiji Toyoda did, together with Taiichi Ohno, he was a workshop manager at Toyota at the time, they are responsible for creating what we call the Toyota Production System, TPS. It's what we base most of our lean understanding and lean research on, TPS. Which if you had to ask these guys or other gray-haired Toyota veterans what TPS actually stands for, they would say, Thinking People System. It's a system which is put in place to make people think. They'd say American organizations, workers leave their brains in the car park before they come to work, because we separate thinking from doing. You understand? Taylorism. We design a process exactly as it should be done, and we pay somebody to do it. They don't need to think. That's wrong. That person has so much knowledge, so much capabilities to develop a better process that we need to develop the people. So what these guys did is they developed the TPS, the Thinking People System, which was based on 2 concepts. Jidoka, which means automation with a human touch. Automation with a human touch. And the just-in-time system, which means we only make exactly what is needed at the time needed in the place needed. So that actually those 2 concepts were from his cousin, Kiichiro Toyoda, developed just in time, and Sakichi Toyoda, his uncle, had developed the Jidoka system. And it's the Jidoka system which I'm going to show you an example of now. So this is automation with a human touch, building in intelligence into machinery, okay? So this is a Type G automatic loom. So before Toyota made cars, they made spinning and weaving machines, looms. And I'll let this guy explain the Jidoka system. Very simple system.
There are 2,570 warriors. Single and break off, dropper down and machine stop. I will drop this dropper plate up here. 1, 2, 3. machine stop. Simple system, mechanism.
You understand the importance of this device, this mechanism. Back in the 1920s when these machines, or before the 1920s when these machines were developed, Toyota would pay one man to sit and watch the machine and make sure none of those warp would break because it would produce scrap. But if you put in this Jidoka system with tension followers on each of those 2,570 warp, it will stop the machine before you produce scrap. And it's cotton, it's very easy to fix. You put it back together and restart the machine. Simple, no quality defects. But it meant that that person was then relieved from sitting and watching carefully this machine to actually think. And they could also run 12 machines simultaneously and still be able to think because the machine would stop by itself and raise an alarm or a flashing light to draw the attention of the operator. So the operators were then paid to think, come up with innovative ideas for improving the process, improving the product. So if you then fast forward a few years, Industry 4.0, I think this is where we're really coming into digitalization, right? There's no digitalization without sensors. We can digitize without sensors. That's just making information in a digital format, right, from an analog form. But digitalization, it's disruptive. We need to put sensors into machines, sensors into processes, and actually use them to disrupt the whole ecosystem. Yeah? So I think Jidoka 4.0, if we're going to use that terminology, it's about putting digitalization with a human touch. How do we use the sensors and the digitalization and the Internet of Things and the artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually help and assist the operator in running the machine, but also how can we engage the people, the humans in the system in improvement work? How do we raise alarms and suggestions and improvement areas? So that's the manufacturing part. We're there, right? What about the sustainability part? So I talked a little bit about this lean strategy for sustainable development. Challenge, problem, Kaizen. Here we have a whole host of challenges. 17 critical challenges that we as a human race have to try and solve by 2030. How long's left? 6.5 years? Which one are you working with today?
Human health.
Human health. You got it. Thanks. So these are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Challenges on which we can base our lean thinking and our digitalization efforts, okay? So let's take one of these in particular and let's drill down. So each of these challenges, I've picked zero hunger. That's a pretty important challenge. I was a hungry baby, you remember this? If we're going to use up all our resources before the 17 of May, where are we going to get our pulsa from? It's important. It's a critical challenge. So let's think about sustainable agriculture. Okay? Some of the sensors we have here are oriented towards this. So this is very clever selected. Okay? Sustainable agriculture. By 2030, ensure sustainable food production systems and implement resilient agricultural practices that increase productivity and production. That sounds very lean as well, right? Increasing resilience, productivity, production. So I thought I'd look to Toyota. What are Toyota doing for this? So Toyota are the go-to lean organization, right? These guys can do lean. It's where it came from. It's what they do. How are they addressing these? And to my surprise, I found an article in the Toyota Times. Toyota's Kaizen brings unbelievable results to farms. Let's go back to the area where Toyota came from, Aichi Prefecture in Japan. It's where Nagoya is. Huh? Very many rice fields, paddy fields. This is the agricultural history of this area, this region, the Mikawa people. So we often talk about the Mikawa spirit when we talk about lean. It's how do we help people? Yeah. So Toyota sent some of its operators, its lean supplier development people out into the paddy fields, to the farms, to see how can we implement thinking which is being developed in the automotive industry and help the automotive industry boost productivity and efficiency and learning and people development. How can we apply that thinking in agriculture? And the first example I found was quite disappointing. It was the 5S, it was the workplace organization. It was, yes, they lose their spades, the shovels. Huh? So many shovels on the farm, and they just throw them when they finish with them. So we marked a place for storing the spades. This is a very bad example because I try and say this is not what lean is about, but actually we have to start there. It's kind of the wax on, wax off of lean, right? You have to do it to get the discipline. So they marked specific storage areas and they numbered the spades, like you've numbered these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know where they are at any one time, and if it's missing, we can find it. Okay? So that was the most simple example. No digitalization yet. Okay? We didn't put chips on the spades. That could be a solution. Not sure if it's sustainable. It's high cost, low value. So the next, still no digitalization. It's the whiteboard, right? And this is very important. So before we digitalize things like whiteboards, we need to understand, well, what would be the problem we're solving in digitalizing the whiteboards? So back in Kongsberg, we had the suggestion system, which was whiteboard-based in each of the teams in the factory. And team members would come, they'd write suggestions for improvements, hang them on the board and solve them. And they said, Daryl, it's 2015. Why can we not make this digital? I said, we don't need it to be digital yet, just go with it. So we learn first the way in which we operate with improvement suggestions. Huh? But then after a while, we found that the suggestions that were coming in this co-located team actually affect other people in the organization or need engagement from other people in the organization. Then it's not so stupid to actually go digital and have a digital system where it's easy to move things around in the digital world. Because if you move pieces of paper around, they get lost, right? So when there's a real problem, digitalization is there to help us. But before we need it, we don't use it. But anyway, what they did is they used this whiteboard for planning work in the drying process. So what they did is they would harvest a lot of rice before it was needed to go into the drying process. So they weren't able to process it further. So that was kind of overproduction in lean terms. So what they did is they tried to balance this using something called takt time. So they knew how much capacity they could process in the dryer machines. So they didn't actually harvest raw materials until they were able to process it. So they created a flow, right? And in doing so, they actually halved the required working hours from 1,750 hours to 800. This meant that farm workers were now able to get a life, less overtime. You can imagine how much overtime they were working trying to process all of these crops before. So they managed their capacity better using visual management. Now, visual management is a beautiful thing. The brain uses 70 or 80% of its processing capacity on visual signals. So in lean, visual management is our go-to technique, right? We need to manage things visually. And I think when we put stuff on the wall, we can talk about it, we can see things, we can move things, great. And visual management is also a key area where we can use digitalization. And this is the next and final example that I found, which is right up your streets. I was very surprised to learn that actually now Toyota are developing soil nitrate sensors, which can be used in the paddy fields to make sure that we don't over-fertilize or under-fertilize and keep the soil ripe for growing rice. This was interesting. So the colors here are showing the content in the soil, and we can use, so this is technology which Toyota are currently developing. So I spoke with Sindre already. I said, let's get on this bandwagon. Let's contact Toyota, see what they're doing. Let's have some collaboration. And see how we can go. So, but I think optimization is a dirty word. Some people think lean is optimization. It's not optimization. But optimization is an important part of business. And we can use digitalization to help us optimize fertilizer use, which is great for the environment and great for the farmers' pockets. So my message is very, very, very clear. The goals are there, the challenges are there. So we need to first think lean, challenge, problem, Kaizen. Digitalization may be part of the improvement work. It may be one of the systems that we're creating to actually identify problems. We didn't go so much into that. So looking at digitalization as a solution, we can also look at sensors and digitalization as a system for raising awareness of problems, just like the fertilizer problem. We can use digitalization. So the combination of lean thinking and digitalization, I think, is a perfect match for solving the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'll end on a statement from Akio Toyoda, who was the former president of Toyota Motors. He now says, just like his great uncle said in 1950, our greatest challenge is quality. Our greatest challenge now is creating a carbon neutral society. This is something that Toyota are working really hard on, both in automobile production and in society in general. So I think that's a very strong message for you guys to go and discuss now during the break. How are our sensors going to contribute to sustainable development on planet Earth? Wales, Norway, and all of the above. Thank you. Any questions?
Perfect. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Very good having you. We're at is anyone in for a short break? Coffee? Yep. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule, which is good because we do have a...
We have a question. We have a question.
Some question from Slido.
Oh, Slido.
Oh, Slido. Who's our Slido master?
Can you comment on Industry 4 and what it means to you? Oh, lovely. Industry 4, what it means to me. Industry 4 is great. It's a fantastic distraction. So I'm speaking as a lean guy now, okay? Industry 4 is a great distraction. It's a lot of cool stuff which can help us digitalize and automate and control. Lean is not a system for controlling. Lean is a system for influencing people to discover problems and learn something new. So if we rely too much on Industry 4 to control processes, we're going to lose this edge. Humans are competitive advantage, okay? We work with something in Lean called poke-yoke, mistake proofing. And we wrote a paper last year about digitalization of poke-yoke, which we called, guess what? Poke-yoke 4.0, poke-yoke 4.0. And what we discovered is, okay, if we're letting the digital tools control the quality and mistake proofing, what's the worst that could happen? The good thing that happens is it stops creating scrap or defects. The worst that can happen is that we make people lazy and stupid and turn off and fall asleep and don't engage in improvement. So I think there's a trade-off. And that's why I'm very happy now that the European Commission have started to push Industry 5.0, which is about resilience, sustainability, and human-centered industry. It's putting the human back in the loop. So I think if there's one thing Industry 4 forgot, it was the people. So that's what I think about Industry 4, Industry 5. And of course, these industries, revolutions, you don't have to go through them systematically or sequentially. I say, when we look around, there's not very many examples of a good Industry 3 company. I've not seen an Industry 4 company yet. Well, maybe I did see one in Drammen last week. HTS Dynamics, pretty good Industry 4 company, if we're allowed to say that. But we don't have to go from 3 to 4 to 5. Some of us are still trying to look for industrialization in general, which is the first industrial revolution. How can we use even steam power? And actually steam, I read the other day, steam is coming back. It's a great way of providing energy in this crisis we have for sustainability. So maybe looking at Industry 1 isn't a wrong idea at all. What else do we have? Is Silicon Valley misnamed? There's very little semiconductor fabrication now takes place there. Yeah, I think, Lynn, you want to answer that one?
No, you can do it.
That's for you. Yeah, I mean, I think Silicon Valley has come to mean all sorts of things other than semiconductor production, right? No comment. Where is the best place to learn innovation? University, industry, or both? That's a great question. That's a great question. I think both is the answer, of course. So I've worked in industry, I've worked in academia, I'm still working somewhat in both of those because SINTEF is an applied research institute. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence, if you want to say that. But I think it's important, innovation, we have to be in both places at once. So sometimes universities are ahead of industry, most times industry is ahead of academia. But I think if we're in both camps, we can really use that to our advantage. Who asked that question?
I'm very biased.
Good question. You're biased.
I sit in both camps.
You do, yeah, in Swansea.
Yeah.
You're in the Bay.
In the Bay Area campus, yeah.
Bay Area, it's like California.
Yeah, Silicon Valley.
In your opinion, how would Lean adopt AI and machine learning to evolve and improve? Oh, that's a nice one. That's a nice one. And actually, that's something we're looking towards. So I think we go back to ChatGPT. We can ask ChatGPT all kinds of cool questions, and it will give us answers. But we shouldn't take those answers as face value, right? We need to help. We need to use the artificial intelligence to help us discover our unknown unknowns. What is it that we don't know? As adults, we need to discover that because misconceptions are leading us down the wrong path. And I think if we take that as our point of departure, where misconceptions are misguiding us, we can also quickly fall into the trap of letting the artificial intelligence misguide us as well. So artificial intelligence needs some form of quality control. Go back to our biggest challenge in 1950s, quality. How are we building systems within this to actually control the suggestions or the inputs we're getting from AI to make sure we're making the right choices?
I'll do it.
So yes, they're compatible, as long as we're thinking about it. Eh? Don't stop thinking, guys. Time for one more? Any comments on alternative metrics and single-year profit increases for evaluating lean implementations? Oh, goodness me. Single-year profit increases. Who's using that to evaluate their lean implementation? You have an MBA, right? Don't measure it on that. Lean is a people development system. Actually, what we did in Kongsberg, one of the greatest results I saw in Kongsberg Maritime was at Geoacoustics in the UK, in Great Yarmouth. There we saw over a period of 3 years, a 400% increase in people productivity. They were able to do twice as much with half the resources. That's how we manage the success of a lean program. If you're able to solve more customer problems with less resources, and that's also very sustainable, then you're on the right path. So it's not necessarily about making money, guys. Though that's an important part of business, I guess, if we're in a capitalist mindset. We can finish these off, I guess. How do we set lean on the agenda for SMBs? Value versus cost. Actually, we did a couple of projects for lean and SMEs, and I think one of the investigations we did was last year, together with my colleagues over in University of Wales, Trinity St David, in Swansea, and we find that SMEs now they're caught they're jumping on the bandwagon, the digitalization. They come to SINTEF or NTNU or USN and they ask us, "Can you help us with a digitalization project?" And we go in and we look around, and as a lean person, I'm destroyed. They want to invest money in digitalization. That's not what they need. They need help to understand what lean thinking and people development is about first. We can't look to these digital solutions to control. We need to inspire and influence people to discover and learn. So I think SMEs are a ripe playground for lean thinking. And actually the economical impact you can make from just starting to think differently is amazing. So the potential of lean is huge still. So I think there's still a lot of ground to cover with lean thinking and zero investment before we start investing in digital solutions. And I think that's the important message, is use your head, not your wallet. Use your loaf, not your bread, Martin. Who is the finest lean professor in Norway?
Anonymous. few, isn't it?
You said it, that's okay. Thank you. Biggest challenges in implementing lean practices in developing and underdeveloped industries. Yeah. What can I say? I think it's a block. We get this mental block. If we're open to discover our misconceptions, then we can go far with lean thinking and practice. But if we've already decided that we want to implement a solution to make more money, then yeah, do something else. If you're serious about lean, you need to go get your hands dirty and actually really discover the problems which are preventing you from achieving those challenges. So it's a cognitive challenge, actually. Again, remember, it's a thinking people system. Okay?
Okay, very good. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you. Tusen tack.